Hey, sorry.
No worries. Are you able to see? Is it sharing my screen? I don't think it is.
It's not.
Okay. It might make my computer very upset. So this will be fun.
You have like a PowerPoint?
I'm doing it through Canva, so it's
I see
in Chrome.
I see it.
Okay, cool. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I still have to feed the mutt. Hey everyone. So we're going to give it just another minute to give people a chance to join. And I am still getting organized. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Let me make sure. There. Okay. So we are trying something new today. We are simulcasting to the Facebook page and to YouTube. So I have no idea how it's going. I am currently hoping for the best. And I'm actually going to load the YouTube up on my phone just in case. Hey, it's working. Ooh. For the record, this is really cool. Okay. So while everyone's waiting for me to get started, I don't know how many are out there, but if you are here, then put in the chat why you love pit bulls and other bully breeds. I can start. I love me a dog with a big head. Like, I know Cheyenne can attest to it. Titus is probably one of my favorite dogs, and I've never even met him. So, there we go. Perfect. All right. Well, we're about 4 minutes in. Oh, Sherry's here. Yay. That's super exciting. So we have officially 3 people, 3 pro dog trainers. So that's really cool. And I've continued my streak where the vast majority of my students are trainers. That's exciting. So cool. All right. I don't know how to do this. So welcome. We're just going to go ahead and get started here. So I have temporarily entitled this class Getting to Know Your Pit Bull, but it's actually a teaser for my class Pitty Pathways that I'm actually in the process of developing. I'm hoping it'll be out next year. And so essentially this is a practice run with the material. By joining this, you are not obligated to pay for anything. This is entirely free. The practice run is more for my end than yours, and you guys are just getting to enjoy the benefits of that. And so we're going to do approximately 5 different sessions. It's just going to depend on how much information I have available and how much I want to be able to share. So great. Oh, thanks, Sherry. I appreciate you for sharing. She's one of my favorite people and one of my biggest fans. So good. Okay. So before we get started, I want to introduce my lovely assistant, and that is Cheyenne Smith. So Cheyenne is also a pro dog trainer. Do you want to give a really quick introduction?
Hi, everybody. My name is Cheyenne Smith, and I went through the Pro Dog Trainer course with Stephanie, and that is how I met Stephanie. So thankful that I did, because I'm learning a lot from her, especially about the bully breeds. So I'm excited to hear this.
I am super excited to have you here with me. I feel like you've been my companion with all of these webinars. That's been great. Okay, so a little bit about me. I'm also a certified professional dog trainer through the Pro Dog Trainer course, and I specialize in what's called concept training as well as games-based training. And I am based out of Crownsville, Maryland, and Cheyenne is based out of West Virginia, and Sherry Ann is based out of Pennsylvania. So we Pro Dog trainers are all over the world, and it's a really cool group. And okay, so the real reason why I'm here. So I am a passionate dog owner, and I believe that all dogs are deserving of a chance for happiness. And I have a very special place in my heart for bully breeds and really just any dogs with a really big head. There's just something about them that, like, you know how some women get around dogs or not dogs, excuse me. Some women get around children like babies and they just kind of like sniff their heads and they get excited. That's me and big dogs. Like, just the bigger the head, the more that I get really excited. I just want to hug them. Okay. I'm going to turn this banner off though. There we go. So some disclaimers. Before I get started, I want to give you the heads up that today I will be touching, well, this entire series, I'm going to be touching on controversial topics. Everything about pit bulls is controversial. It is controversial among people who like pit bulls. It is controversial among people who don't like pit bulls. We're going to be talking about things dealing with aggression. There are going to be times that I may throw out a trigger warning. I will always give you a heads up. You may want to cover the screen or just take a step away and come back in a few minutes. But I ask that as this is happening and I'm talking about controversial things, you try to keep an open mind. Everyone has different philosophies on how dogs should be raised, and that is especially true when it comes to pit bulls. So I do welcome and encourage thoughtful debate. It's okay to have differing opinions as long as you're able to share them in a constructive manner. Also, this series is not a replacement for professional training. While you actually happen to have 3 trainers in the room right now, this is just not the venue for it. So we, as time permits, may be able to answer some training questions, and I'm going to be providing little tips and tricks for training along the way. But for serious challenges and complex situations such as aggression and any type of anxiety, especially separation anxiety, anything that would require in-depth investigation and research into the root cause and then the development of a long-term comprehensive plan is just not tenable for this particular venue. So if that is something that you are interested in, I recommend you please send me a message. Either you can PM me or you can email me, and I can provide links to that at the very end. And I can either set you up with a session with me, whether in person or virtual, or I can refer you to someone else who is better able to meet your needs. So just a reminder, this is just not a replacement for professional training. This is essentially for information use only. Yeah. And last but not least, remember to have fun. So life is very short and you want to make everything a party. And I want this to be a fun time. So definitely, I hope that you're able to enjoy yourself. So let's just jump right in. All right. So why am I doing this? Well, for starters, I'm very passionate about pit bulls in general, but it's worth noting that pit bulls are facing challenges that no other dog are. So every year, 1.2 million dogs are euthanized. Of those, 40% are deemed as pit bulls. Now, if you look at this, this came from ASPCA ultimately in 2014. So a lot of pit bulls come in. The vast majority of dogs that are brought into the SPCA were pit bulls. And then they're only number 3 in terms of adoption. So given the amount of dogs that are deemed as pit bulls, that is an astronomical amount. So the odds are just stacked against pit bulls. So there's what is called breed-specific legislation, which essentially says your dog is a danger it is an aggressive breed, and therefore it is not welcome in these areas. And that can include in housing. So it makes it very difficult to find housing, especially those places that would be appropriate for a pit bull. There's a lot of overbreeding, or I think careless breeding is probably the wrong word for it. I would say irresponsible breeding. Things like puppy mills and even backyard breeders are really adding to the problem. Now, I'm going to caveat that with there's nothing necessarily wrong with breeding as long as it's done in the right way. And unfortunately, because pit bulls are so popular, there's more and more breeding going on, and essentially people are in over their heads and they're returning the dogs to the rescue. And so now they're essentially overrun with bully breeds. And so most importantly, if humans are better able to understand the breed, they're less likely to surrender that dog to a rescue or have them behaviorally euthanized just because they are overwhelmed and they are coping with behavioral issues. Now, I want to caveat something that I said on the previous slide, and I wanted to get through that slide before I said it, is in here, I asterisked approximately 40% of the 1.2 million dogs are euthanized. Those are pit bulls, supposedly. The problem is that when a dog is taken to a shelter, they are looking for stereotypical traits and calling it a pit bull. That does not necessarily mean it's a pit bull. It just means it has a big old head and it is a short-haired, short-coated dog. And so this statistic is actually incredibly deceiving. And as we'll talk about in a minute, it is impossible to get a better statistic. So what is a pit bull? This is where it's about to get really controversial. According to the AKC, pit bull is not officially one breed. It's actually APBT, American Pit Bull Terrier, which is what most people perceive as a pit bull, American Staffies, Staffordshire Bull Terrier, and American Bully. According to the UKC, there are 4 separate, quote, bully breeds that are recognized, none of which are just considered a pit bull. American Pit Bull Terrier is the closest to a pit bull that they get, which is interesting because pit bulls technically originated in England. According to Dr. Pamela Reed, the vice president of the ASPCA anti-cruelty behavior team, it's just an umbrella term, and this is actually a very common it's a very common way to look at the term pit bull. And so it takes into account essentially any dog that has stereotypical traits, including the blocky, disproportionately large head, and they have to be medium to large size, muscular, and short-coated. And so that takes into account all the ones that fall under those breeds that are the recognized breed standards for the AKC and the UKC, as well as ABDA. But it also is going to encompass boxer mixes, mastiff mixes, and essentially any dog that just happens to have a big head. So every now and then a Labrador will happen and it'll mix just right with a pit bull, and they'll be called, or say a boxer or something, and then they'll be called a pit bull mix. It's just easier than narrowing it down. This one's my personal favorite. So according to pitbulls.org, they're saying that it should be limited to the main 3, American Pit Bull Terrier, Staffordshire Bull Terrier, American Staffordshire Terrier. So they're essentially saying it's more important that it has that terrier in the blood and they're a bully version of a terrier. But then I looked into pitbulls.org because I figured it sounded like an authority on pit bulls. And according to pitbulls.org, they are the premier resource for all things American Pit Bull Terrier and their humans. And it is run by 2 people who own a ridiculously adorable pit bull lab mix named Bauer. So that makes them the authority. So the reason why I put this here is just as a heads up to always keep an eye on the sources of the information that you find. So there is a lot of misinformation regarding pit bulls out there and bully breeds in general. So you always want to try to find the citation relating to it. So while researching all of this, I kept finding a lot of repeated information that was just either not cited or poorly cited. And so definitely watch out for that, because some of this bad information can actually make it harder to raise your dog. Okay, so as you can tell, what a pit bull is frequently debated both amongst experts and laymen. So people on Facebook forums, including the pit bull parents one, and really at the end of the day, it's impossible to know exactly what we should be calling a pit bull unless it is referring to the American Pit Bull Terrier, just because that falls under the breed standards. For the purposes of this training or this webinar, I'm probably going to switch to Pitty just to refer to all of them, or bully breeds and things like that. So the idea of a breed is a human construct. So we selected for genes that we wanted. So a perfect example of this would be like a purebred golden retriever. They have very specific genes. They have a specific coat type. They might have long fur, and you can narrow down their lineage. Breeders are able to do so relatively easily. So everything that we've talked about throughout this, it's using the two interchangeably often, and that is incorrect. So for it to be an official breed, it would have to be relative to the genes, not the traits. The problem with, quote, pit bulls is that it is trait based. And so how can you really narrow it down? So at the same time, either all of these different things, all these different definitions of pit bull is wrong, or all of them are right, or none of them are right. So it's just one of those things that you kind of have to choose your own adventure. The way that I look at it is they all serve a purpose. So sometimes you'll hear me interchangeably use pit bull for all of the different bully breeds, not all of them, because you don't want to include some of the little ones, but like for the staffies and the American Pit Bull Terriers, just because it's easier as an umbrella term instead of having to list all of them out. And bully breed encompasses a lot more than just those types of breeds. Oops. There we go. So what's closer to the truth is that Pit Bull Terriers and all of the bully breeds, they fall under the bulldog breed category, also known as bully breeds. And so essentially what they are is they encompass a lot of the very large muscular dogs with the big heads, including American Bulldog, Doggo Argentino, Boxer, Staffies, and Bull Terriers, all the way down to Boston Terriers. So they tend to be muscular and very affectionate, entertaining, and outgoing, as well as brave. So those are going to be the positive traits. Now, some of the potentially negative traits, or at least traits that might make them more difficult to raise, is that they tend to be all or nothing. They are all in or they're asleep. And they are very powerful, which makes them kind of difficult to harness that energy. And then they're touchy-feely. So good luck living with an American Pit Bull Terrier. If you do not want that dog all up in your space, then maybe this is not the dog for you. Now, all of that information and a lot of the information that's coming in these following slides comes from this book. This right here is my Bible. I recommend this to every single client that I get. So it's Kim Brophy. Now, Kim Brophy has some really interesting theories that I'm going to go into a little bit in the course. But essentially what this dog does is it breaks down your bully breed as well. It breaks down all the different breed types. And then it talks about what might make that dog challenging, what makes them a great dog. So it's really a Bible to help you identify if a dog is meant for you. So if you are watching this wondering if pit bulls or bully breeds are the right type for you, then I recommend going home and going on Amazon and picking this one up. And I actually have it on Kindle, but I don't think I can load it without messing up the slides. Okay. So I am going to take a very quick break. Are there any questions in the chat? Lovely assistant.
I don't see any questions yet.
Okay, good. I went to load up my YouTube, but it's I couldn't get it to stop making noise, and I didn't want it to show up and echo and all of that, so I had to stop watching it.
I'll pull
So
up
hopefully
the
there's no what's that?
I'll pull up the YouTube.
Oh, you're gonna load there. Okay, thank you. If you're watching on YouTube, she'll be there soon, so hang tight. Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. And so some trigger warnings, there is going to be some imagery, and I'm going to be talking about the history of the bulldog, which is actually a very violent history. So you have been forewarned. If you are uncomfortable with that, then maybe wait about 5 minutes and come back. So bulldogs, they are a genetic subgroup that were derived from broad-mouthed mastiffs and old British pugnaces. I don't know how to say that, which means attackers. And they're also known as mollicers or mollicer breeds. And so they are guardian dog ancestors, essentially. So they were types of guardian dogs. And so they were used for thousands of years in combat, going all the way back to ancient Rome. And so they were courageous, formidable fighters. And so if you go and you look at like the actual history of, I think it's called molossus, which is where the molosser term came from. What you'll learn is that's a god. Let's see if I get this mythology right. So it's a god, and it was supposed to be a very like terrifying and very violent god. And so they named these dogs after them because they would just attack without prejudice, and they would be fiercely loyal and defend their humans.
Hey, Stephanie, can you put a link in the chat for the YouTube channel?
Sure.
I can't find it, and Sherry can't find it either.
Oh, no. All right, just a moment.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. This might take a second because I'm still sharing my screen, but. Oh, here we go. Okay.
Perfect.
I got it. Okay, cool.
Yay.
Yay. All right. So from that point on, after, oh, I'm hearing myself. What happened?
Sorry, that was me.
Was that you?
We're good.
Okay, so they were used for blood sport entertainment. So they were basically gladiators. So they were putting them into the ring, and it was these man versus beast contests. So men would get into the ring and they would try to slay a bull or a bear or something of that nature. And it was very bloody, and thousands of spectators would come out and they would watch it. And so what they would do was they would, quote, bait the wild animals. And so that would be chaining them up and just getting them very, very angry to the point that they would fight immediately. And then they would unleash these dogs. So the molosser type dogs, which are that mastiff guardian dog type of breed. And they would just set them loose to fight this animal. And so by the 16th century, they changed from bears to bulls because bears were getting harder and harder to find. Now, as this was happening, it was focalized in multiple countries, including, I think it was Spain, Greece, and several others. But the most, it was most prevalent in England, of all places. So if you really look into the breed, a lot of it is relating to England and how they are the ancestors of today's American Pit Bull Terrier and the Staffordshire Terriers. Okay, so let's break down a bulldog. This is a little bit easier than trying to break down every single possible bully breed. So bulldogs were specifically bred to bring down the bulls. So they were developed from what was called the butcher's dog, guardian dog, similar to what we would use a collie for today. So herding, protecting livestock, and they would catch loose cattle. And so they were significantly smaller dogs, and they were bred with some larger ones, and they were able to breed in specific selective traits. So some of those traits are a predatory gameness. So they really enjoy being a predator and bursts of energy. So what they would do is they would have this quick, intense behavior, so that they were reserving some of that, some of their energy, and just going straight for the bull. And it would be really quick. They would take it down as fast as possible, and then they would be able to go back to calm. And so essentially what they were able to do is the dog was bred to grab a bull by the nose with its teeth, and they would twist it until the bull would drop. And so with this, they developed and they specifically bred in a quick and intense grab bite behavior. And so there is a predatory sequence, which I always get wrong. So it's orient, stalk, chase, let's see, bite, kill, and then it was like consume, I think. I think I'm missing one in there. But oh, chase, I think I missed chase. And so essentially what that is from the time a dog spots prey, they are going to use certain traits based on what was bred into them to take that down. Or so take, for instance, a collie, they're going to be really into chasing. That's what makes them so good at herding sheep. And a golden retriever is really good at seeing things and bringing it back. Ooh. Oh my. Sam, that's enough, thank you. Good girl. Dog bell. Okay, and so they really exaggerated this grab bite behavior. And so they didn't want the dogs to waste its time and energy with warning or hesitation. So most dogs naturally do not want to fight. They will do anything to try to avoid it. They will provide multiple warning signals, and we'll cover that in another class regarding body language. So they'll lick their nose a lot, and they'll back away, they'll turn their head, all sorts of different signals. And they didn't want the dog to hesitate. They wanted it to go from 0 to 1,000 and just go straight after that. And so it's almost like the dog has a flip switch. So kind of like a light switch. When you come in the room, it starts out as dark, and then you would click it and it would just turn on. And so it's like, boom, and all of a sudden they're going. And so you actually can see this with bully breeds today, and that it actually feeds into a lot of the challenges that a lot of bully breed owners have. That really intense energy that is super hard to harness, and a sensitivity to movement that just gets them so excited, and a dog on dog reactivity. I'm going to go into more of this probably next week. Today, my focus is going to be entirely on the history and the selective traits. Okay, so are they aggressive? Yes and no. It's the easiest way to put it. So they were selectively bred to be aggressive towards animals. So the thing with breeds is there's a lot of variability. Within a breed, it is possible that, say for instance, within an American Pit Bull Terrier, there's a very good chance that they have that possibility of being aggressive. That does not mean that they will be. Some pit bulls are aggressive, some are not. And so essentially, as dog owners and as pit bull owners, and basically anyone who rescues pit bulls, you have to keep in mind that the things that they are selectively bred to do, they get a strong dopamine kick. So with pit bulls, there is the possibility that if they get that chance to bite onto another animal, grab it and twist, that they are getting a huge kick of dopamine, and they're more likely to do it again. And so what it comes down to is it's nature and nurture combined. None of this happens in a vacuum. So if a dog is left completely on its own and it's a stray, and it finds itself in the wilderness, it might have a grand old time killing chickens, which I'm pretty sure my previous dog used to feed on for dinner. But it's also very possible that you will never see this in your dog. And they were specifically bred to be gentle and docile aside from when they were fighting. And so they needed to be easily handled by humans. So that means they're very compassionate. They just want to be near you. They would crawl into your skin if given the opportunity. They're very good companion dogs if you can harness the other part of them. And I'm going to talk and give you a couple of tips and tricks for how you can do that. Oops, wrong way. Did I get it? Okay, so that is all I have for today. I didn't want to overload everybody with information. I knew that it could get pretty dense, but I wanted to open it up for any questions relating to pit bulls or bully breeds, how to raise them, and anything like that, and just get a feeling for what types of information you all are interested in hearing about. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to drink some iced tea, and then I'll wait to see if there are any comments. Sherry, recognize Sammy's voice. So while we're waiting, you want to see my pit bull mix? I know you ladies have seen her. Sam, come here. What are you looking at? Come here. Oh, good girl. Oh. So this right here is my pit bull mix. You would never know it. She is tiny because she is a pit bull, dachshund, German shepherd, and 9,000 other things. Okay, so Sherry says they started out small and were bred with larger breeds. So the ones, the butcher dogs, yes. So if you go all the way back to the Molosser breeds, they were huge. Think of them as being closer to a Mastiff than to a pit bull. So they were that very muscular, huge head, very big dogs. And so over time, they started to breed them to be smaller. And then when they were starting to fight them specifically for sport, that's when they bred them with the quote butcher dogs, which were smaller, probably similar to the size of maybe a collie, something like that. I think I had the picture of the butcher dog. So something like probably this one right here is a little bit smaller. Yeah, so the history is really interesting, and I really only barely touched on it. Yeah, and over time, so they are still actually being bred for fighting to this day. There have been news reports of people injecting them with testosterone to make them even more bulky and easier to fight and things like that. So essentially, ooh, that's not what I wanted. There we go. So essentially what is happening, you gotta be in here with me. I can't be alone, Cheyenne. So over time, they're still changing, and the genes are so mixed up at this point that aside from those that fall under those breed standards, they're still just all over the place.
She says pit bulls can be a lot of different sizes, can't they?
They can, especially depending on your definition of pit bull. So if you're talking about American Pit Bull Terriers, they're going to be a bit smaller than some of the other ones. Which one is this? The American Bully is really short and stocky. They're the ones that typically have the ears cropped. I mean, several of them do, but they stereotypically you'll see them as being more cropped than the others. And they're definitely like, they're built like Sammy, right? They're short and they just kind of do what Tom does, essentially. So are pit bulls actually a type instead of a breed? Yes-ish. So it really comes down to that definition. I think, at least here in the United States, we use that as an umbrella term while most people misunderstand that to be just the American Pit Bull Terrier, or they don't realize that there even are these specific sub-breeds, so like the Staffies and things like that. And so the AKC doesn't recognize most dogs that we would consider pit bulls.
It's really fascinating. So breeding pit bulls started in the UK, you said?
Yeah, as the pit bulls that we know today. So they started in the UK. Okay. Well, that's all I have for today's history lesson. Something that I want to get into next week is to do more of a geeky dive into how those selective traits are presenting in pit bulls. I've kind of avoided going into the specific breeds. I can do that, but I think I'm more likely to save that for the actual course that I'm going to launch next year. The reason for that is we only have so much time, and I don't want to take up an hour of, well, so if I only do 1 hour a week, and if I do everything that I want to do, we will be here for 10 weeks and I'll still have more to talk about. And so I don't want to give everything away for free. And I feel like everybody would be really bored of me after a while. So yeah, but next week I'm getting excited about getting into the geeky stuff. So why these dogs are more, well, obviously, like they're more likely to be aggressive just based off those selective breedings, but why? Like, what is it about the breed and the appearance that makes them more aggressive, and things like that? And getting into some of the more behavioral challenges. So like a good example of that would be that over arousal. So they have those rapid bursts of all of a sudden like 0 to psychotic. And then it's really hard for your average owner who might live in the suburbs like I used to. And it's hard to get all of that energy out in a positive way. And I'm also going to discuss some strategies of how you can embrace that dog's natural tendencies in a positive manner. Thanks for coming, Sherry. It's super great to see you. So Sherry is launching what's it called? Geriatric Gems course, all about senior dogs, which I am waiting patiently for the whole thing to come out because I'm going to be the first to sign up for Sammy. So talking about how to use games to bring out the best in your dogs. Are bull terriers part of the pit bull type? Yes. Yes.
Is a bull terrier the target dog?
Is it the what dog?
Is the target dog, is that a bull terrier? The target, like the store?
Oh, wait, sorry. Bull terriers are not pit bulls. They're bully breed. So they fall under that bully breed umbrella, but not pit bull. Pit bulls are the ones that are going to be the more stocky, that were bred to go after bulls. Yeah. And bull terrier is the target dog. Took me a minute to figure out what you're talking about. I'm like, is she using like a term that I don't know? Like I was going through the mental file. I'm like, wait, no, actually it's like target with the thing on the eye.
Yeah. The dog.
I'm a little slow. Did you know that the single most decorated World War II dog, I want to say all dogs that were in war, was a pit bull? And his name was Stubby. And he was in World War II. And he saved a whole bunch of American troops.
Wow. Do they still have pit bulls in the military?
Yes, but not as much. They tend to use Malinois and German Shepherds. Yeah. Man, someone should do one of these for Malinois. That would be intense. But yeah, so they're starting to use them more in the police force, of all places. They're really good for the police force. Which makes sense because as things are happening, you want them to be able to like act rapidly and then be able to let go eventually. That's one of the problems with Malinois. They don't want to let go. But yeah. Any questions relating to dog training? I see we have 5 people on the Facebook, 3 of which might be me. It's hard to tell. I'm going to load my information back up.
Yeah, do that. And I'm looking at the YouTube channel right now, and there are no questions in there yet.
Okay. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. That would explain it. Oh, that's the wrong one. Okay, so I'm going to give it just another minute. If anyone has any questions relating to pit bulls, the history of pit bulls, at least as fast as I explained it, because I did a really quick whistle stop tour, then now would be a good time to ask, as well as training issues, relatively simple training challenges. We can't get into super complex stuff right now, but yeah. Give it a few more minutes.
Do docking the ears and the tail have to do with them fighting historically? Do you know?
I will look that up. I didn't see anything about it. It probably did once upon a time. I can see benefit for it, but I would have to double check that. I didn't see anything while I was doing my research, but I wasn't specifically looking either. These days, it's almost primarily cosmetic, but that's because most owners of pit bulls and bully breeds are just using them as companion dogs. And a lot of times when they're docked, the owners are just doing it because either it looks tough or because that's what was stereotypically done. So they just see it as, oh, that's what you do with pit bulls.
Yeah.
But I can see benefit for it in fights. So that might be part of.
Yeah, I just thought that might have been how they started it. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
So they came later.
Yeah, the dog fighting came. So that started in the 1940s. So in England, while we're doing history lessons, I learned a lot from this book right here. It's fantastic. Anyway, so while they were in the 1940s, they actually made it illegal to do pit bull fighting and like ring fighting. And so people were starting to go and do it privately, similar to the types of dog fighting that we would find today, or like what you can imagine a cockfight would look like. So they were taking it, and it was more private as opposed to thousands of spectators coming out. And as a result, it actually just really, it permeated across the UK. They actually had a lot of stuff. Hi, Phyllis. It's nice to see you. Phyllis is another trainer. It's great. Yeah, so Phyllis, the recording is going to be available on my Facebook page as well as on my YouTube. So I'm going to keep it up on both for probably 2 weeks after the conclusion of all of this. Today, what you missed was a history lesson, essentially. Okay, well, since there's no questions, I'm going to let you all go. Thank you so much for tuning in. This was a lot of fun, and I had a lot of fun researching the history of pit bulls. There's little bits and pieces that I didn't know. I knew in broad strokes what their history was, but I had never really dove into the molosser types and things like that. So this was really rewarding. And so at the risk of giving a shameless plug, this information is all being compiled into a future course that will be called Pitty Pathways. I'm hoping to have it available by next year, and that's going to be probably a 10-week course that dives completely into all things pit bull. And so while everything that I'm covering today is a very fast, like whistle stop tour, that's going to be much more in depth. So stay tuned. If you're interested on being added to a wait list, just send me a PM or send me an email. You can get in touch with me in any of these places that I put up on the screen. It's not hard to find me. So, all right. Thank you all so much. Take care, and I will see you all next Wednesday at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.